Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can create automated exercise plans for patients with low back pain. And this is a part of my master's thesis. I did this in collaboration with something called the Self-Back Project, which is an ongoing project right now. It started in January 2016 and it will last until December 2020. Where they try to make a decision support system to improve the self-management for patients with low back pain. Now, as you can probably understand by the length of that project, it's kind of an extensive process. So this is just a proof of concept, just to see if you can create exercise plans and how that works. So the agenda today, I'm going to start to talk a little bit about low back pain. Why this is an interesting domain to work with and why you could use AI on it. I'm then going to talk about case-based reasoning and genetic algorithms in general, because that's the methods that I used, or was inspired by at least. I'm then going to show you my method and how I combine them, and I'm going to show some, present some experiments and results from them in the end. So I'm going to start with low back pain. Now, how many people here have ever experienced low back pain? Please raise your hand. Okay, so almost everyone. Wow, that's interesting. Would anyone care to guess how many of the Norwegian population that experienced low back pain at least once during their lifetime? I want the number in percentage, if anyone would care to guess. And I just want to say that the number is from 2007. I still have that number because it's still a part of the clinical guidelines for low back pain, national clinical guidelines. So I think it's still relevant. Would anyone care to guess? Yeah? 69. 69%? That's a little bit too low. Anyone else? 80. That's correct. 80% of the Norwegian population would experience low back pain at least once. Now, how many do you think have experienced low back pain during the last 12 months? Still percentage? So during the last year? 60%? Almost, it's 50%. So about half of the Norwegian population have experienced low back pain during the last 12 months, or at least they did in 2007, and I would imagine it's more or less the same. And 85% of the people that experience low back pain, they have something that's called non-specific low back pain. Now, what that is, it's pain that cannot be attributed to a known specific pathology. And examples of this are if you have an infection, if you have a tumor, if you have osteoporosis, you can say, okay, your low back pain is due to this. But 85% of low back pain is non-specific, so you cannot attribute it to something like this. And low back pain is also the largest single cause of sick leave in Norway. And because so many people experience it and so many people have to stay home from work because of it, it costs Norway 2% of their gross domestic product. And if anyone would okay, I don't understand how much that is, this was Norway's gross domestic product for 2007. So we're talking about huge sums here. And what is interesting is that even though the research in the area has increased a lot during the last years and access to treatment has gotten better, and also work has gotten less physical demanding, the costs have significantly increased the last 30 to 40 years. So it's definitely an area that you can save a lot of money if you can get self-management to get better and have less people experience low back pain. I'm going to present you some clinical guidelines for people with non-specific low back pain. Now, I just want to say that all of this research is about non-specific low back pain, because if you have osteoporosis or a tumor, you're not going to do exercise. You have another treatment method. So this is for the people that have non-specific low back pain. And there are guidelines from different places in the world. In Austria, you should avoid bed rest, you should maintain normal activity, and exercises are recommended. In Canada, no bed rest, normal activity, exercise is recommended. Europe, the same thing. Finland, France, Norway, it's more or less the same thing. You should maintain your normal activity. It's recommended to do some strength and flexing exercises, and you should not you should not be in bed. And this is more or less what it says. It doesn't say anything more specific. It says you should do exercises, strength and flex exercises, that's based on your back, but doesn't give you anything more than this. And this is one of the reasons why it could be interesting to work with this domain. It's because general activity is the most important thing, and it isn't that important what kind of exercises you do and what kind of activity do you do. You just have to stay active. With that being said, of course, it should be a little bit like the exercises should be chosen from a pool of exercises that actually are relevant, but the patient can very much affect their exercises themselves. So that's one of the reasons why you could create this automatically. I'm now going to talk a little bit about case-based reasoning. It's the main method that is used in self-back, and therefore also the main method that I used. Case-based reasoning, it consists of a huge database with a lot of cases that consist of a problem and a solution. And when you have a new problem, it goes through 4 different steps. Retrieve, reuse, revise, retain. So you get a new problem, and then you start by retrieving, in the first step, the most similar case. And then, in the next step, you reuse the solution from the most similar case that you retrieved. Now, this solution is then applied as the suggested solution for your new problem. And you then do a revise. You check if this is a valid solution. And if it is, it's a confirmed solution, and you can retain it back into the case base and therefore increase the amount of knowledge in the case base. So that's very short how case-based reasoning works. Now I focused a bit on the adaptation part. It lies within the reuse step, which means instead of directly copying the solution from the most similar case, I try to adapt it to the new problem. And well, not many people, but some people argue that without this adaptation, you can see case-based reasoning as a simple pattern matcher. And you can do adaptation in many different ways. You can use rules to adapt a case. You can connect it to a neural network to adapt a solution. I tried to do it with genetic algorithms, or something that was inspired by genetic algorithms. So genetic algorithm, it's based on the evolution theory, the survival of the fittest, and it works like explained here. You start by having loads of different genomes, and from this you generate a random population. And then you will rank all the individuals in your population according to a fitness function. And the fitness function says something about how good a solution is. So let's say if you want to create killer pigs, a great killer pig would have teeth and be strong. And if you have a pig that doesn't have teeth, it's a bad killer pig, so it would get a bad fitness score. And then in the third step, you would select some of your best individuals and you would mate them and create kids. And hopefully these kids get good qualities from both their parents and become an even better killer pig. And if they don't become a better killer pig, you can like send them to the slaughterhouse or whatever, and don't use them to continue to mate on. In this step, you also have a possibility to have a mutation, which means that if you only have pigs without teeth, then suddenly one of them can mutate and get teeth, and this will be like a good mutation. It can also be bad mutations, but there's a probability that it can mutate. And then you will continue with the step 2 and 3, like ranking the individuals and mating them to get kids until you hit a termination condition. Now, the termination condition can be several things. It's usually if you have got a fit enough animal or individual, or it can be that you have done the iteration enough times and you can't get anything better, so you just say, okay, I'm done. And one of the reasons why I chose to try to incorporate this is that to use a genetic algorithm, it may not always give you the best solution, but it's very good at giving you a partially optimal solution. And since in this domain it's more about actually staying active and doing something, then a partially optimal solution will be good enough. And it's also a domain where it's hard to know what is a good plan and give a good fitness function as well. We will see a little bit about that when I get back to my results. But I'm going to show you how I combine these, how my method works. I'm first just going to show you, like, this is how my solution part looks like. Very shortly, or it's a simplified picture, but you have a chromosome. This is like the solution. It consists of 7 exercises in this example, and they are grouped into different genes, which is like the back extensor genes. These are exercises that works on the back extensors. Flexibility genes are flexibility exercises, and abdominal gene are abdominal exercises. And one of the reasons why they are packed into different genes, it's because that you change one gene for another gene, exactly like you do when you mate people. You change the gene from your eye color to another eye color. You can't get 2 genes with eye colors. That doesn't work. So this is the solution part, how it would look like. And this is how my circle looks like. So you start with a problem, a new patient, which is Q. I haven't talked a lot about how the patient looks like and what attributes we have on that, because I think it's not very interesting for this talk. But if anyone wonders anything about that, we can do that, talk about it later. But I have a new problem, and from that patient, I will retrieve 2 of the most similar patients with their solution. So I say that the 2 fittest individuals are the ones that are most similar to my new patient. I retrieve those 2 solutions, and then I send those 2 solutions into something that's called a crossover function, which is where you mate your parents. And in this crossover, I will pick genes from each of the solutions, and it has a 50% chance of choosing from either of the parents, but it will get all of the new. It will take a gene from either of the parents. And after this crossover is done, I just validate that everything went okay and that it has all the genes that it needs to do. And then this is my proposed solution for the new patient. And I don't check if that's a valid solution, because this is just the first exercise plan and it's a proof of concept. But yeah, so I would just retain that back into my case base and be done. So this is my method. And with this, I did some experiments and I got some results. So I used something that is called leave one out cross-validation, which means that you remove one of your cases with the solution from the case base, and then you use only the problem part as input, and it gets you a solution for that part. And when I'm done with that, I put the problem back again with its original solution, and I take out another case, and I do this for all the cases. With this I have, in the case base I already have exercise plans that are created by a medical expert, so these are like good plans. And I got 3 medical experts to score my different exercise plans. And what I gave them was that I gave them the patient information. And I also gave them 3, or actually gave them 4, but I have just talked about 3 different exercise plans. I gave them the one that was created by the medical expert. I gave them the one that was created with this method. And I also gave them a version that did not have any adaptation included. So it just skipped the crossover and genetic algorithm part. It just did a basic case-based reasoning circle. And I also gave them, it's kind of interesting because with the results, I also gave them another plan that used another adaptation technique, which I haven't talked about, but it's valid when we get to the ranking, because I got them to score them based on quality and rank. So they got each plan, and they should say, like, for each plan, would you say that this is a very good plan, okay plan, poor plan, or very poor plan for the given patient? And I also said, can you rank these plans? I have 4 proposed plans for this patient. Can you tell me which one is the best one for this patient and which one is the worst? Yeah, so this is some results that I had. This is the quality, and this is XOR is, by the way, the name of my created method. So you can see here that compared to no adaptation, my method doesn't do a lot better based on quality. It's slightly better scores, but not very impressive. But if you look at the ranking, it's slightly more impressive. you can see here that the X-over is looked up and said the best or the second best solution a lot more often than without any adaptation. And if you also consider in here that one of the solutions that they ranked was one that was created by a medical expert, I would think this is kind of interesting because it actually gets ranked first. That means better than a solution created by a medical expert in quite a few cases. Yeah, and that's what I want to show you now, because this is how it compares to the expert solution. So my method is, well, it's obviously less often a very good plan compared to what a medical expert would do. But if you look at the 3 best, like if it's a very good plan or okay plan, and the criteria to get that was that this is actually a plan that a patient could perform, the X-over actually gets those scores more often than the expert plan. The expert plan gets a poor plan or a very poor plan more often than my X-over did. And also, if you look at the ranking, you can see that the X-over is preferred as the first or second best solution more often than what is created by a medical expert. It's not a huge difference, but at least it's somewhere in the ballpark. So, yeah, that was it. So, thank you. Are there any questions? Yeah.
How many solutions did you send out to the experts? How many in total did they rank?
So there were
Sets of solutions?
There were 9 patients, so it's kind of a small data set.
Repeat the
Yeah.
question.
Oh yeah. How many plans did they rank? And so I had 9 patients, and each of the 9 patients had 4 proposed solution plans. Yeah, and all of the plans were, they did not know. First of all, they did not know that one of the plans were created by a human. They thought all of them were computer generated, and they were color coded. So they didn't know that what kind of solution they used. Yeah. Anything else?